You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. On this episode of the Black to Business Podcast,
I don't think for a magazine it's really possible to be in development stages and stay the same. The consistency part comes with just doing the work. It's putting out articles, putting out magazines, putting out content that people are going to gravitate to. A lot of times you're going to put out a story that no one reads, and you don't know no one's going to read it until you see no one's reading it.
Okay, so let's be honest. We're living in this information overload society, and people, including myself, want information and we want it now. So I don't know about you, but with that being said, I don't want information just from anywhere. I want it from a trusted source. So how do you make your online magazine be that trusted source? Joining me on today's show is publisher and editor-in-chief at SUAVV Magazine, Mr. Rashod Davenport. So I invited Rashod on the show because he's been doing some amazing things over at SUAVV Magazine, which is an online magazine specifically for Black men covering fashion, sports, cars, music, relationships, entertainment, you name it. And to date, SUAVV has interviewed some of the biggest celebrities and public figures in our generation. So I wanted the scoop on how they've grown their online magazine from zero to major. And so during this episode, we get into the importance of listening to your readers and how do you push through those trial and error processes and why your delivery, approach, and personality matters when you're reaching out to others to be a part of your project. And lastly, what's the future of the magazine industry? So I won't make you wait too long, but let's get into this juicy episode. So Rashod, thank you so much for joining the Black to Business Podcast. I'm excited to have you on the show today.
No, absolutely. I enjoy this and I'm really excited to do this with you.
Great. So what I like to do is I like to start with all of my guests. Just if you could tell the audience who might not yet know about you a little bit about who you are, what it is you do in your business and why.
Okay. So again, my name is Rashod Davenport. I'm the owner and the publisher for SUAVV Magazine. We are a Black men's magazine. From my knowledge, one of the only ones that are there and probably the best one out there so far. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia. Just moved here from Los Angeles. Moved to Los Angeles from New York. So just kind of bounced around the country. Now just kind of settling down a little bit. So all the places, because I'm from Georgia, and so you moved from off topic, but you moved from New York to LA and then LA to Atlanta. What inspired those moves? Yeah. Well, I moved to this is going to be even worse. I moved to New York from Philadelphia. So I lived in Philadelphia, moved to New York because I just wanted to experience the New York lifestyle. Being in New York, I got into hotel management, started developing more into a acting career that I wanted. And then had an opportunity to take the hotel management job from New York to LA after being very upset at work. I put in for a transfer, put the transfer in. They called me back like 6 hours later and was like, yes, come on. And then I just bounced. So I did have some guidance. One of my best friends, like my older brother, his name is Donald Welch. He's been telling me to come to LA for years to pursue acting. And it was just like the opportunity and timing just fell along together. So I went for it. So
wow.
Got to LA, found out I'm not a LA fan. It's a city that you're either going to love or hate. Me and LA, I got along with the aesthetics of Los Angeles. I didn't really get along with the depth of it. So to Atlanta I come because it's Atlanta.
Love it. I'm in New York now, so I always wanted to live in LA, but I think now I'm like, I think I'll pass. So
my advice to anyone that wants to live in LA is to go there, do like extended trips, like do like a week or two at a time and just kind of see how you feel about it before just jumping into it.
That's a good point. So thank you for just sharing a little bit more about who you are, your background. But just to go a little even further, so now you have SUAVV Magazine. So let's talk about, what was your transition like out of college and how did you get to SUAVV Magazine? More so like the journey.
So what happened in college, I majored in business. I had to do a major. It was business and music. I thought I was going to go outside of college and go into music production, into like music law. I wanted to be in the music industry. What I realized, I really didn't like the way the music industry treated its artists, and I didn't like the power that they took away from the artist. So it takes away from the artistry because everything became more about like the money. So I was with my brother. My brother at the time was working for a newspaper in Philadelphia. So we would typically just kind of like go to like newspaper stores and grab magazines and sometime during the month. So we were going to Tower Records, which that's a throwback by itself. We went to Tower Records and it was just like, okay, let's just get these magazines. And we realized that between the two of us, we picked up about 12 magazines just to kind of get like a overall feel of what we wanted to read. And in that moment, we were like, you know what, this is ridiculous. Let's just make your own magazine. Well, my brother said, I want my own magazine. I'm the kind of person where you don't really tell me that you want to do something because I'm going to like edge it on immediately. Right. So he was like, I want a magazine. I was like, you can do it. Let's go. And we put all the magazines in the middle of the floor. We started like kind of flipping the pages and putting Post-its in and saying, I like this. This is important. This is not. Let's just create this way. And maybe like 4 days later, we had a magazine laid out that we wanted. And we used a lot of the connections that he made working for the newspaper. And our first issue came out and it was strong. Like Beletta Wallace was on our first cover story. So it was one, she didn't do interviews. So for us to get her, it was like, we're here. Let's do this. And kind of took off from there.
And that's great. It's like, because that's the kind of way that you kind of have to move, especially these days. It's like you have this idea and go on it. So it was good that you were on your brother like that. So even further, you mentioned kind of like he used his connections that he had. What was it about, one, how were you all able to, because you have some top people in the magazine. So how were you able to convince even further journey? Was it, because his reputation that you had, or what do you think was it that gave you all the juice?
You know what? I think honestly, when it comes to, especially this industry, when it comes to like the PR world and dealing with people's managers and agents and like different production companies for like films, music, whatever, it's literally about your delivery, your approach, and your personality. You can't just go to somebody and be like, oh, I want you on my magazine. No, I have to explain to you why I need you in my magazine and why you need my magazine. So if I come to you and say, I would like to have you in my magazine, you need to know where you're going to benefit from that. And I need to explain to you how this is like something that is going to help boost you, because anyone that's already out in entertainment, they can feel like they don't really need you, like you need them. And you have to kind of explain to them why it's important that they're coming to your magazine. So I always make sure in any email pitch that I send, I explain what the magazine is. And then within explaining that, it is, how do you fit into this field and how is this going to help benefit you and your project that you have going? So it's a lot of relationship building. It's a lot of working on the smaller projects to get to the bigger project. It's a lot of introducing yourself to people repeatedly. So I can work with the same publicist. And if you don't remember me, I don't get offended by it. I'm just going to reintroduce myself to you. And it's humbling yourself and not feeling like there's something wrong with asking for something numerous times. And I feel like that's where a lot of people make mistakes at in the beginning of their careers.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Even just running a podcast, it's like you have the follow up, explaining why people are needed and, how is it beneficial to them both. So I definitely agree with that.
Right. You got to get that out there.
Yes. And so you talk about, the benefits for the individuals that you all are interviewing. So when it comes to magazine, we all know, how people feel about magazines and where they're headed and all of those things. But it seems like you all have targeted this unique audience, which is men. So why was that? And also, how did you figure that that was your target audience? I know you mentioned before that it wasn't anything that could be related to you. You didn't find anything in these past magazines, but did you do some kind of testing?
We didn't do a testing. It was literally, this magazine was created out of frustration. It was just an example. We went to the store, and if you looked for men's magazines, you had your basics, you had GQ, you had Esquire. Details was just coming out. Mark Eckel had a magazine that was coming out at that time, which was, I can't remember the name of it now. But he had his magazine. He had things like Wired, Sports Illustrated, King Magazine, XXL, Source. And it's like, when you looked at it from a Black men's perspective, what it showed us was all we were worth was rap, women, and sports. And it's like, there was nothing else there. There was nothing saying, okay, well, you guys have relationship problems or relationships that you will want to work on. You guys are into business and technology. You're into like different cars. You're into your family. You want to know more about money. You want to know more about fashion. You want to know more about travel. None of that was being approached by the industry to the Black men's community. So it's like, okay, we're going to show that we actually have depth to us, and there's more to us than raps, women, and sports. And that's where we made sure that our audience was the men that are men. The conversations that happen in a barbershop, we're going to talk about them in the magazine. The conversations that should happen in a doctor's office, we're going to talk about them in the magazine. Like all the things that we say, Black men, this is what we do. We're going to make sure that that's going to be exposed from us.
So you kind of like went into, you find your target audience. So let's go back to, you have this audience that you want to focus on. And at first it's you and your brother. So how do you get from, because today is about going from zero to authority. Right. How did you all get your team, one, and then how did you get it into the hands of the people?
The team situation. So what we ultimately did, again, my brother's working at a newspaper, so a lot of the staff at the newspaper were within our demographic. So we kind of like borrowed some of the writers from the newspaper. Like we let them know what we were doing. Like the interest was there. They were like, I'm on, like, let's meet after work in like some side room conversations. And you just found people. Then you find people who have a voice, but they don't have an outlet. And it's those people that you kind of bring in, and it's like, I like what you're saying. I like how you write. I like your delivery. This is what we're doing. This is how we can help you, how you can help us. Like, let's see if this works out. And there's a lot of hiring and firing that happens in the beginning, because, and it's so uncomfortable to fire people that you're friends with, but you have to get to a balance of a staff. And I think that's hard for people when you first start a business. Like, you don't want to become the bad guy, but it's not being the bad guy, it's protecting what you have. So it was a lot of friends that were helping us out in the beginning. There were family that were helping us out in the beginning. We fired both. I mean, it's always interesting when you're at like Thanksgiving dinner and your mom's like, yeah, my email didn't work anymore. And I'm like, so it's like, it's an ongoing family joke about like, if we don't like you, your email won't work. So it becomes a understanding, and with each part of your team that you're developing, you understand how that team needs to be better. And I think for us, the hardest part was delegating responsibilities to other people and letting them do it. That's really hard, because this is my baby. So it's like, I don't want you to mess this up, but I have to understand that I can't do it all by myself. So that was the biggest part with building a staff, and then getting it out into the hands of other people. a lot of word of mouth, a lot of support from, again, those family and friends, and then people that would catch on to it, and then support from them, getting people in the magazine and getting them to, promote your own article. This is yours as well. This is as much about you as it is about us. So we want you to promote you as well.
Definitely. And I think I really want to step back for a second. I think you mentioned like all great points, Rashod, especially the team building, because I feel like, a lot of our audience are startups. So they sometimes feel like, I talk to entrepreneurs and they're like, I have to have this perfect and, this person wants to help, but I don't know if I should let them help. Do you have any advice on, because you said you've hired and fired, but, having people help you to a certain point, or, if you don't feel like it's right, don't do it?
Right. What I will say is it's never going to be perfect. You'll never have a perfect team. You can have a great team. It'll never be perfect. Someone who is in a place that is doing an amazing job is going to mess something up. And it's understanding that people are human. You're not going to get a perfect team. I think that's very important to understand, because that's somewhere that we got stuck at in the beginning of the magazine. We were trying to have perfect opportunities and perfect people doing perfect stuff. It doesn't happen that way. And sometimes mistakes from people become your biggest gains. So you have to be willing to bring people on and have test runs. So it's like, you know what, I'll put you on a probation period. If this works, then I'll keep you. If it doesn't, I'll have to let you go. No hard feelings. But again, this is my business. So I can't just bring someone in and let you stay there knowing that you have no idea what you're doing and knowing that you're bringing me further back. If I have to keep correcting your job, why are you here? So if you write something and I have to rewrite what you wrote, why are you writing anymore? So I think it's understanding of the value of your time, the value of your company, and then making sure that you're putting out a product that works. I think what is very important for everyone who is starting a business is to find a mentor. For us, it was very hard because there was no one really in our field. There were a few people that we could connect with that would give us advice. One of the closest people that we had, his name is Clarence Waldron. He worked for Ebony Jet in Chicago. And that was my brother's mentor when he was younger. So when we would have questions, we knew we can call Clarence and say, hey, what do you think about this, this, and this? And you understand more about how the industry works. And he kind of taught us a lot about, the approach in building relationships with the people that you're doing interviews with, instead of just interviewing them and letting it go. It's very important to build relationships with them, because you have no idea when they may need to come back or when you may need to go back to them. That's
good. That is good. And so let's talk about the writing. And you have this online magazine, and, I'm someone who's interested in starting a magazine. What are some of the key people that I need to have on my initial team? And then also, how do you go about, I know for you, your situation was different, but for others, any advice about going to get writers?
The first person you need to bring on your staff is a copy editor. Everyone can write great, but you need someone that's going to copy edit your stuff, because I think we all have a voice in our writing, and that's what kind of differentiates each different writer. Everyone has a style. They have a voice. But that's just the way that you write. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the way someone else is going to receive it. Personally, I write how I talk, and it's very much how I talk. My brother has to end up editing a lot of my stuff. If he's not editing it, my mom's editing it. And it's like, Grammarly has saved my life. It's very much, you have to find a copy editor first. I would say outside of that, depending on what your magazine is about, try to find a person for each individual area. So if you're say you're going to be a fitness magazine, great. So you want to have a fitness writer. You want to have someone who actually is certified in training. That way you can bounce things back off of them and find out, is this a good idea? Okay, no, someone's going to get hurt. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Like, you want to have that person there. Then you want to find like a nutritionist to make sure that you're rounding your magazine out, and then find health professionals that necessarily don't have to be on your staff, but you can go to for columns. and say, you know what, I saw you did a column on this. Are you okay with writing a column like that for my magazine? And you just kind of bring people on in a small way until you can staff your magazine the way you want it to be staffed.
Definitely. I'm writing notes like, oh, this is good.
I try.
Yes, you're doing good. Even about I like the idea of the well-rounded writer. So what about, there's this big thing about content. There's this big thing about pay, paid writers versus free writers, paid staff versus, freelance. What are your thoughts around that and, recommendations?
It's a hard topic. I think because it really depends on the level of the magazine or the level of where you're going to be writing. If you're sending a writing to a magazine that has 6, 7, 8 million people reading the magazine each month, and this is like a multi-million-dollar revenue magazine, get your money. Like, that's important. It's like, don't even play with them. Like, they can afford to pay you. If you're going to go to a smaller magazine that is like a startup magazine, don't expect much. In the same breath, know your worth. So it's like, if you want to say, you know what, I can give you this article. I know it's on a low scale, but could you give me, say, $35, $50 for this article? And that's for someone, if you want to become a freelance writer, build your reputation on getting your work out there, because the more clips you have, the better off your chances are on either being hired by a magazine or having your articles being purchased at a higher price. But don't be unrealistic on who you approach. So don't approach a SUAVV magazine with a GQ magazine expectation, because I'm gonna be like, this was a nice article, but no, thank you, not at that price. We're good. And it's kind of how it works. You have a lot of magazines that are coming out now that will purchase a lot of their articles from wherever they're purchasing them from, or quote unquote borrow from wherever they quote unquote borrow the articles from. For our magazine, all of our stuff is from us. So it's like, if we're not interviewing the person directly, it's very rare someone actually submits an article to us. But it really depends on the magazine that you approach when it comes to being a writer and getting your article sold.
So what about, because, speaking from the angles of an entrepreneur who would necessarily have an online magazine and they are considering, okay, I have to hire these writers, the budget, or how are they monetizing to be able to pay for these writers that they're given, or what are some other types of barter that they can do?
Okay, so online magazines, we have an advantage. We don't have the overhead of print. Printing, that's a mistake that we made early in the life of SUAVV. We're at an age now where everything is digital. So digital magazines at this point make all of their money on advertising. So the more advertising you make, the more revenue you have coming in. The more revenue you have coming in, the more you can pay someone to be on staff. The goal for most magazines is to just have contributing writers sending in articles. That way you're not paying them a salary. I don't have to pay you if you're not working. I can just reach out to you if I want something from you specifically, and then I'll just grab it. And again, that just really depends on the magazine. For us, we like to have people on our team, and you become a part of our family. So it's like, you're going to share in on this voice. If there's like a joke that's going to go around within like the SUAVV family, you're in on the joke. So if we were writing about it later, you can reference back in your story about something we joked about in the office, and it becomes relatable. So it, for us, shows like that family atmosphere and that team atmosphere. But again, there's others that will, just hire you for that story. And again, for them, it's more of a revenue from advertising than anything else. Subscriptions are few and far between. Nobody really wants to subscribe to anything anymore. I think it's very rare that a $10 per year subscription is really going to pay for much of anyone's salary for that year.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten some letters with subscriptions, and they have become so cheap.
Oh,
I'm
it's
like,
it's
I remember
$4.99 and we'll give you a gift. It's like you're
this.
you're giving me your magazine. I'm paying more for postage than I'm paying for the magazine subscription.
Right. I'm like, I remember subscriptions were at least like $24, $5. I'm like
Right,
saving money. And that
right.
was not even a whole year probably.
You can get
So
a
it has
year of Cosmo for $1.99 on a good month. It's like believe it happened. It just
I agree. Yeah.
$2. That'll get it.
Yeah, I mean, and that was my next thing. It was like the movement of online versus print magazine. So, do you feel like print is like dead, or because I do have a subscription to, I think it's Fast Company.
Yeah,
But,
no, print. I honestly don't think print will ever quote die. It's you have so many people that just like to have a paper magazine in their hands. There's something about seeing it sitting there that is so different than having it in your iPad on your Apple store. Like it's very nostalgic to just have a paper
right.
magazine. Like there's something like flipping the pages and like folding the corner down and like marking something off, and like it's just you give it to someone. It's in your car. You put it in your bag. It's just something to having a print magazine that is amazing. The downside, it's expensive. So unless you have, like as a magazine owner, unless you have the revenue and you really want to go into the print world, which is a lot more tedious, it becomes a lot more tedious with designing. It comes a lot more tedious with like your photo exposure. It's a lot more detailed to printing a magazine than it is having it online. Like online, you can stretch a photo out and it can still work. Once it's print, if you stretch it out, we know you stretched it out. And it's like you can now have a stretched out pixelated picture. And like those of us looking at it that can see that, it becomes an issue. In the same breath, like why would I print? Okay, personal experience. If I can go into Barnes and Noble right now, read your entire magazine and put it back on the shelf, how did that benefit you? So I can take it, go to the little coffee shop aspect of Barnes and Noble, have a Starbucks coffee, read your magazine, be like, that was a good magazine, and put it right back on the shelf. You made no money from that. And you probably got a coffee stain on the inside of it. So it's like, it's one of those things. It's tricky. It's a tricky world, but I don't think the print magazine world, I don't think it can ever die.
That's good. So, yeah, I definitely agree because it just, like you said, it's nostalgia. And I personally, there are some magazines I prefer, but I do, some things I want to see online. So I agree.
Right. Yeah, I get a GQ physically and I get a GQ on my iPad. And I love using the iPad application because it's amazing. But in the same breath, it's like I like to have the magazine.
Right.
It's one of those things.
So you are focused on, Black men or, men. So what are your thoughts on, how are you all helping to change the narrative, or you've been able to make an impact, especially in the community, what you've seen?
So for a while, we were saying, okay, we're going to be a urban men magazine. And then it went from urban men's magazine to men's magazine. And that was after a conversation we had with Russell Simmons doing his interview. He was like, well, if you make it a Black magazine, you kind of cut out this whole demographic. We were like, yeah. And then it's like, hold up, bro. No, like everybody else has their magazine. Like we're going to do this like for us. Now, again, everyone can read it, but it's for us. So what you find when you do that is our magazine, when it comes to Black men, we're empowering them. We're challenging you to think bigger. We're challenging you to want more. We want you to see what going to Dubai may look like and realize, you know what, it's really not that expensive. You just spent Dubai money to go see a Beyonce concert. And it's like, we want you to, I'm sorry. We want you to, but it's real. It's like, it only costs what, like $400 or $500 to go to China. It's like, go do something, like have experiences that are going to be different. If you purchase every iPhone every other year, that's a trip you can be taking. And it's like, I want people to read our magazine and feel that and feel you know what, I can do this. So even with a lot of the entertainers that we interview, we don't want to just talk about the project you're working on. I want to talk about the struggles that you went through to get to where you're at, because there's somebody going through this that feels like this is the end and I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to turn around and go the opposite way. But it's like when you talk to like a Henry Simmons who tells you, I was living in the theater upstairs on the balcony for almost a year because he quit his job at a Fortune 500 company so that he could be an actor. And it's like you hear those stories and it's like, okay, so this can be okay if I keep pushing through. And that's the impact we want to give people, like bring back the strength that Black men have had in the past. I grew up with powerful Black men as a kid, and I saw that dwindle down from my teenage years going into early adulthood. And now it's like I see Black men being more proud and more in the community and more correcting when it comes to the younger generations. And it's like, this is the time to kind of show them there's a way to do this and embrace them. And there's a way to do this and alienate a younger generation. So it's, again, just giving that perspective and giving that guidance and giving that encouragement and empowerment for the Black male community to develop and to flourish.
Yes. So, Rashod, do you feel like we're at a point, because like you have SUAVV and you have a lot of great magazines and publications that are Black owned. So do you feel like we're headed in the right direction, especially in terms of representation for the Black community when it comes to media? Do you feel like we're heading or higher,
You know what? Yes and no. I feel like there are some publications, there are some websites, there are some different avenues that are doing a great job at being positive Black media. And then I feel like there are some publications, some websites, some TV shows, some other avenues that are becoming bigger by glorifying all the negative aspects of Black culture. So it's one thing to have this outlet and say, you know what, I want to do this and this is going to help someone. And it's another thing to have this outlet and say, I want to do this and there's no benefit whatsoever in this. Like no one gets anything from it. And people will say, oh, but it's entertaining. That's cute. I want you to be entertained. But what are you getting from it outside of being entertained? Because what I realized, there's websites that send me emails. I'll unsubscribe. I get another email anyway. I won't put them on blast. But it's like they send me emails. I'm like, this is like, I can't gain that 15 minutes back in my life that you just took from me reading what I just read. Or you get sucked down the YouTube channel. And it's like, this is horrible. So there's websites and I'm like, all you're doing is perpetualizing everything that we don't want to say that's how Black people are. Like, that's not a depiction of us. That's a depiction of something that is negative. So I'll say, again, yes and no. There are some people that are doing some amazing things and I applaud them. And then there are some that are doing some other things. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm not going to say, you shouldn't do this, but it's like, how can you take that and make that something that's going to actually benefit someone somewhere? Because now it's like you have kids that will sit on the subway train in New York and literally cuss out everyone on the subway train because somebody's screaming, World Star in the background. And it's funny to them.
Yes.
But it's like, that's not funny. You just disrespected pretty much every woman on this train just from being how you're being right now because you think it's going to be cute and it can make it to a website that is going to glorify it. So, yeah.
That's I want to stay on that for a second because I literally just had this discussion with someone yesterday. And, I feel like people who are listening who want to own an online publication, magazine, they may be creating something that may be a little ratchet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this discussion about, because you got to think about the audience as well as the kids who are coming up. It's a different time now.
Right.
But also I had the discussion about a popular TV show that comes on now, very popular. I won't say the name, but my friend said, I don't think that show represents Black people in a good light. And my thing was, you have to think about the different scenarios and dynamics of the Black community. So maybe it resonates with someone else, but may not specifically with you. And is that still considered negative? Because it may be something that you don't want to see or you don't want people to see about Black people, but it's reality for a lot of people.
Right.
So that's where my thing is.
And I completely agree with you. And I tell people all the time, like, I can go to church. Lord save me. I can go to church, but that don't mean I want to listen to gospel music every day. It don't mean I want to listen to gospel music all day, every day. So if I want to go to church today, and today I'm in like a Kirk Franklin mood, tomorrow I might be in a Jay-Z mood. The day after that, I might be in a Miles Davis mood. The day after that, I might be in a Beyonce mood, whatever. And it's just, there's different levels of who we are. My thing is, there's going to be ratchet out there. It's going to happen. I think it's, how are we presenting it? Like, if you have a TV show that has a ratchet element to it, and again, people say, it's entertaining. Okay, cool. What's the next episode? Like, how do you address what happened on the last episode? So if that was ratchet, how do you fix that? Like, do you just go into the next episode and be more ratchet than the last one? And then 5 episodes later, you're more ratchet than the last 4? Or do you find a way to say, okay, this is what happens. And then on the next episode, this is how we need to start fixing this. This is how we need to start communicating, because right now we're just yelling at each other. We're not hearing each other. So for Black men, for instance, we don't do therapy in general. Like, we don't do therapy. We don't know how to talk to each other. So it's an understanding that I have, and I know this. I know that a lot of fights, a lot of like shootings, a lot of robberies, whatever, a lot of things happen on miscommunications. So it's like, okay, yes, these are miscommunications. These things happen. But let me use my avenue to say, okay, maybe this is how we need to start talking. This is where these conversations need to happen. Maybe there should be someone within your circle of friends who does not have the same perspective as you, and they don't. And that way that person can mediate conversations when there are disagreements. And someone typically needs to step in on conversations when there's a group of people and say, okay, we hear you, but you're not hearing what this person's saying. I'm not attacking you. And, it's a way to buffer things down to get people to understand. But if you're like sitting back again with a cell phone screaming world star, you're making it worse. And I have, again, my friend Donald in LA, he would always approach me and say, I love you and I want what's best for you. And I'm only going to say this to you because I feel like you would want me to be honest with you. Is that okay? And that for me takes down a defensive wall immediately. Now, after that, he will go in. And it's like, it's just something you have to deal with. And you had to accept it because you know that it's coming from a loving place. But if you just jump off and just start attacking at me, I'm not hearing you at that point because I don't know what you're doing this for. And I feel like that's what some of these sites are doing. It's like, it's a lot coming at you and you don't really know how to process it. But there's nothing saying in there that, maybe this should happen this way, or maybe this should be the next avenue to correct that. And I think that's where my issue comes in with certain shows and websites and platforms.
So I think the moral of that it really is, if you're going to put that out there, just make it in the right direction, move your content in the right direction for the people you're catering to.
Right. Or balance it. It's like if you throw it out there, play some Shirley Caesar after it or something, like just balance it out somewhere where it's like, it's not just this one type of content all the time. Like, give it something else, like give people something else to kind of challenge them a little bit better.
So what do you feel is like SUAVV's competitive advantage? Honestly,
again, I don't feel there is another Black men's magazine like ours. There's Black men's magazines that will focus on haircuts, will focus on cigar shops, different cognacs. Like the focus points are very specific. For us, this is like having, it's like having an Essence magazine for a Black male. And there's nothing else out there that's going to give you that. There's nothing that's going to give you a rounded and balanced understanding of Black men lifestyle without going overboard and off the wall somewhere. The last magazine that was able to do it, that was great, was Savoy. And that was a good 10, 12 years ago now. Since then, it's like there's been nothing that says, you know what, we're doing this for Black men. And I think that was really important for us.
And I think one of the things is, especially today, talking about, building the audience and becoming an established authority like you all have been able to do, is consistency. So has your story and that initial, plan been the same throughout the years? No,
there's been, for us, there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of changes in tone. There's been a lot of changes in how we're addressing our readers. There's been a lot of changes in, again, just staffing and voices and like what's popular, what's not popular. Like I don't think for a magazine it's really possible to be in development stages and stay the same. The consistency part comes with just doing the work. It's putting out articles, putting out magazines, putting out content that people are going to gravitate to. A lot of times you're going to put out a story that no one reads, and you don't know no one's going to read it until you see no one's reading it. It's just, you have to find out what's interesting to people. And that's a trial and error kind of thing, because you can put out a survey and say, what are you interested in? And a person be like, I want to read about basketball, fashion, and say cars. Right. And then you see that same person commenting on politics, relationships, and health. So it's like what you're commenting and liking has nothing to do with what you just told me you want to read about. So it's just, again, it's a balancing kind of thing, and understanding that you just have to have a trial and error. You'll find out what works, but you have to do it to find out that it doesn't work. And I think that's the downside of the magazine industry.
So I know the meat of everything, people always have questions about funding. Mm-hmm. So you kind of mentioned before advertising as a revenue stream. So what are some other ways that, people can look to monetize and also stay consistent? And, even your thoughts on funding, partnerships, sponsorships and such.
A lot of sponsorships that you will go into, especially when it comes to like different organizations. Like for us, we do a lot of things with Until There's a Cure, which is a AIDS foundation. We work with the Sickle Cell Foundation, and now we work with a homeless foundation based out of LA. It's a lot of that comes from just sharing. You're really not going to monetize off of that kind of stuff, but you have to do something that you feel resonates with you. A lot of the partnerships are not going to do that. When you decide to monetize on a product, you have to find products that are going to fit your audience, and then say you want to become an affiliate with that person. So right now we have an affiliation with Amazon, and we have one with Tom's Shoes. It's beneficial to a way where, like Tom's, for instance, it works with us. So when we say, we're working with this homeless association as well, and I would like to see if we can get some of your shoes delivered to some of the homeless kids that are in this city. Like, that's where the partnerships really start to come in at. It's honestly putting yourself in front of companies. There's a lot of companies that are willing to advertise. There's a whole lot more that are not. And you can have an advertiser, and the moment you write something that you feel strongly about, you can lose that advertiser, because if it doesn't fit their message, you now have crossed a line with them and they can pull back out. So there's a lot of just understanding how that area works. But partnership wise, I don't really go into too many situations with other businesses that are going to become partners with me looking for like a monetary gain. I look more for the monetary stuff with people that are just trying to promote a product. They're not really trying to do anything work-wise, community-related, or, philanthropic. So that's kind of like how I approach it.
Got it. And I have to ask this, when you started SUAVV, were you working full time, and did you have a point where you had to transition, and what was that like to entrepreneurship full time?
Oh no! If you're an entrepreneur, you need to have a job. Rule number one: do not leave your job until you are financially able to. It ain't cute. Everybody wants to make that. No, it's not. It's not a pretty world. It's entrepreneurship is hard, and there's a lot of stress that comes from it. There's a lot of moments until you make it that you're going to have financial issues. So me, for instance, like I cried last week. I went to turn my computer on and it didn't do anything. Like the power did not come on at all. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. I have a whole magazine to design right now. This is not going to work. And you put into your mind, this power button, if this does not come on, is going to cost me $600, $700, $800. I might as well go buy a new computer. And if you don't have money saved up to do stuff like that, it's going to hurt. And there's a level of stress and sacrifice that every entrepreneur is going to go through. 85% of that is self-induced. Like you're doing this to yourself and you don't have to. So it's find a job that's going to work for you around what you're doing. If you're going to go into this entrepreneurship thing full time, like if you're going to become a baker and you're going to bake cakes and you're going to be out during the day selling cakes, find an overnight job somewhere. Like do something that you can do from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. and then have your day to do whatever you need to do. Go to sleep at like 5 o'clock and go back to work. You have to do that for a few years. For me, we started the magazine. I was working full time in mortgage lending in Philadelphia. So I would go to work, be at work from 8 o'clock until 5:30, whatever, get home at 6:30, 7, be up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning working on the magazine, and then go to sleep for a few hours, get back up and go to work again. And I did that the entire time I was in Philadelphia. And then when I got to New York, it was the same thing. I got into hotel management. I was working overnights hotel. And then during the day, I was working on the magazine. And if you don't balance it, you burn out, which is something that happened with me. Like I burnt out in New York and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to put this magazine on hold for a little bit, because you have to figure out what you're doing wrong. And it just comes with that. So I tell people all the time, like, your job is your job. And until you are making enough money to support what you're doing and be okay with it, don't quit your job. Like there's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur and having a job. I just read that that Ava DuVernay worked like up until her 4th film. Like, wow, don't quit your job. Like keep your money there because you need that. You're going to need that to go into your business. There's a lot of paying out that happens in the beginning of businesses. There's a lot of marketing you have to do. There's a lot of buying websites, buying domains, buying advertising space. There's a lot of buying that has to happen. And if you don't have the revenue sitting there, you're going to mess up really fast, really quick, and it's going to hurt.
That was the realest advice, I think, even though it was like, oh, I feel that one. Because I think it's glamorized. Entrepreneurship is so glamorized and people think I'm going to leap and I'm going to be okay with this little savings. And it's like, no,
you're not. You're not. You will find out how fast 10, 15 grand goes in 2 months. Like it's a different world when you don't have that money coming in consistently. And it's like when you're an entrepreneur, there's no such thing as a day off. You don't have weekends. Don't nobody care if you're getting sleep. Like if you're working, your phone is going off. Like I tell people, I wake up every day to about 125 emails and I need to have them all read before I go back to bed. And it's like, I can't sleep knowing that there's like a bunch of work waiting for me the next day. So my sleeping pattern is jacked. Like I may go to bed at 3:00. I may go to bed at 5:30. I may go to bed at 6. I got to be back up by 8:30, 9:00, 10:00. So it's like I have developed a habit of sleeping on like 3.5, 4, 5 hours, which is not, that's what I'm saying. It's not good. There's a lot of sacrifice you're going to put on your body. There's a lot you're going to put on your mind. There's a lot you're going to put on relationships with people. Like you're going to have to sacrifice things and people. So it's like you're having a birthday party. You know what? I can't make it. Y'all having a party tonight? I can't make it. Y'all want to go to Miami? I can't go. And you have to be disciplined in yourself enough to be able to do that, because you can't go and do everything just by saying, oh, I don't got to go to work tomorrow. No, boo, you always got to go to work. There is no tomorrow.
Right.
There's no off day. You're always working. So you're on vacation, but you're still answering emails. You're on vacation, you're still answering your phone. Like it doesn't stop because you're an entrepreneur now. That doesn't work that way. I think that's where people, again, like you said, is glorified, and people think that it's just a simple life. It's not easy. It's maybe twice as hard as getting up and just going to a 9-to-5. Like going to a 9-to-5 job is easy at this point.
That's real. I think that, I mean, that's what set the tone there. And learning, I feel like learning all that you've learned and doing all that you've done, what has been like that most challenging and also the most rewarding thing about this whole process for you?
The most challenging part of the process is realizing that you have to continue learning, even when you think you know what you're doing. There's always a learning process. There's always something that you need to take away from everything that you do. Every issue that we put out, there's something in that issue that you had to learn to get this done. Whether it is something wasn't sized correctly, or the last one you did, you went past like a print line and that didn't work out too well, or a staple was in the wrong place, or this logo needs to be changed, or don't put a page number here. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of building that always has to happen. That part that never stops. And I think that's the challenging part, because you're always trying to develop more while feeling that you understand what you're doing. So yes, you understand it, and you have to know to be great at what you do and be great within your own confidence of yourself. Like your self-confidence has to be impeccable all the time, because you're going to have moments when you doubt yourself. That's the challenging part. The rewarding part is being able to look at what you've developed and knowing what you put into it and being proud of it when it's done. I don't like to do anything that I'm not going to be proud of when I'm finished with it. So it's very much this happened, we did this, like this was amazing. And that's that quick moment that you can celebrate knowing that you have to get back at it again. That feels good. Having someone email you and tell you how amazing their interview was, that feels great. Having a Kevin Hart read his interview and then post on Instagram saying, oh my God, go check out this website. And then having like 20,000 people go to your site that day. Like those kind of things those are the rewarding moments. It's like the work that went into this, like all the frustration, again, crying at midnight, is those kind of things make it worth it in the moment that someone says thank you, or this was amazing. You have no idea how important this was. And that kind of stuff. Like that's big for me. I'm all about trying to make sure people have a voice and getting the voice out there. Everybody has a story. So it's a matter of like letting people have their story and get their story out there correctly.
Yes, I love it. And all that you've done is amazing. And I'm excited to see even, the future, what you guys have in store.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Before we go though, I have to ask you like couple fire questions. So my first question is, what's like a book that you recommend in your journey that has been great for you? A book.
Oh my God. My favorite one was Do You by Russell Simmons. I think that and Journey to Success by John Johnson, which is, if you're going to go into magazines, that's an amazing book to read, John Johnson book. Anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur, Do You by Russell Simmons is impeccable.
Yes. And what's the last item you splurged on for yourself?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really splurge. An iPad. And that wasn't really, that wasn't a splurge. I try not to do that anymore. I feel like it's one of those things that I don't really need stuff. Again, I will happily take a trip. Like if it's a trip, like I will put out the money and vacation somewhere. Like that for me is a splurge that's worth it.
And happy hour or brunch?
Brunch. Like, no, brunch. Because, okay, brunch starts at 2 and brunch can lead into just going out afterwards. You can be out and just having a ball all day. So Sunday fun day is my thing. You have fun with it. Happy hour is like 2 hours. That's not going to work. Because you'd be at the bar trying to like get your last 3 before that cutoff time. I don't be like, I need 3 more, only one at a time. Then you're like guzzling back drinks. Like, give me some unlimited mimosas, some eggs and pancakes, and I'm good for a start day.
That is good. I never thought about it like that, but yeah, that is terrific.
Got to get your money worth.
And what show do you wish still aired?
Living Single and Girlfriends. Living Single, obvious reasons. Khadijah had flavor. I think she was killing it early on in the game. Like I have my circle of friends. We kind of like say who's who. We do these things with like shows, like groups of people. So it's like you can kind of like take people's personalities and be like, yeah, that's you. You're Rasheen. And it's like, it works out that way. Girlfriends was an amazing show. I don't think there was like anything else like it on TV. Like that was it was an amazing show with amazing content, amazing writing. They dealt with issues in different kind of ways that could relate to male and female. And it's just kind of like, it was a conversation starter. So I love that show for that reason.
I have to actually get back on both of those because those were both shows that I really did not watch I couldn't get into, but I think it was because I was so young, and now as an adult, it's a different thing. So,
I'm telling you, like if you go through that Girlfriends series, like from start to stop, and you'll see like the characters develop, and there's a lot of growth in each person in different areas. And so it's like the person that was very like irresponsible or immature in the beginning, like you'll find out in the end, like how they became like this mature, responsible person. And now they're like the go-to person for advice in the situation where in the beginning, you wouldn't even talk to them about whatever. It's like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But now it's like, I want to go ask this person. It's a great show in that aspect. I would say Martin because that's one of my favorite shows, but Martin's that last season just kind of like, it's like they started having the issues in the cast and like they didn't want to be on set with each other. So like you got these dumb setups like, oh, you're in LA and you're here. And it was weird. I was like, nah, y'all don't come back. Don't do that. Let that one go.
That is true. Yes. So it has been a pleasure. You have to tell people how can they, stay connected with you and what's upcoming and how can they connect with you and support you.
Cool. So the main thing you want to do is go to our website, which is www.suav.com. SUAV is SUAV as in Victor, V as in Victor, .com. So you want to go there. That's the website. The website will have new issues on it on the top of the homepage, and then you can scroll through the website and kind of connect whatever else you want to do. The next issue comes out September 15th, and I have a mobile app that is being developed right now that should hopefully be finished by the time this next issue comes out. So I'll be sending out all kinds of like sign up codes and, text this number to SUAV or whatever. And you can get like notification updates on your cell phone. Like if there's a new article that comes up, the same I get these CNN pop-ups, you'll be getting the SUAVV Magazine pop-up, which I'm super excited about. And then we're doing that. And I got some crazy things for 2019, but I don't really want to talk about it yet because I'm still developing it. But let's just say there's some theme songs happening, and, you know, we're going to work on some camera.
Ooh.
Yeah, we want to make this happen. We're going to make it happen. SUAVV is like the next media powerhouse for Black men.
Loving it and claiming it. So
Gotta claim it.
Yes, you do. You do. So thank you so much, Rashod, for being on the show and really just sharing your journey, but also, you know, some tips. I feel like I took a lot away, and I'm sure our audience will. So thank you for being so amazing.
No, thank you for the time. I think your show is really important. I think it's very important for a lot of Black businesses to get out there and just kind of share this information because, again, it's not really given to us. And a lot of things that we are finding out as business owners have not been taught to us. So there's a lot of navigating that we just need to share with each other and not feel like we're intimidated by each other. Like, I can have it and you can have it too. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes. And that's a word. So until next time.
So I hope that you took something away from the episode. I surely enjoyed recording, and I really enjoyed talking to Rashod. I think the thing that resonates the most is when you're doing something, make sure that you're intentional, but also being authentic to why you started. So if you missed something or you want more information about this episode, be sure to visit blacktobusiness.com/EP37-Rashod Davenport. And please spread this with someone who you think may benefit from this episode. And I look forward to the next one. See you soon.